Hey.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Oh.
I was looking for my mic and then I realized I'm mic'd, so. How you guys doing? So, Glenn, first of all, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I was just telling you backstage, it is such an eye-opening, energizing, exhilarating experience to walk into this place. It's like no other conference.
That's our secret sauce. That's our secret sauce. The energy is definitely special here.
My wife thought I was at a club and not at a conference.
We've been accused of that before.
What's going on back there?
Yeah, so I understand you were born here or you lived here for a period of time?
I was, and then my family moved to Seattle because my father's an aerospace engineer.
Oh,
so
yeah?
we went to work at Boeing.
Yeah.
But then they came back to Florida when I left. And then they passed away, so it's sort of sentimental for me to come back to South Florida, the thick air, the warm ocean. It's an amazing feeling.
I bet. Well, Miami's a great town. It has really been great so far. We've loved being here, for sure. Luis, gracias. So let's talk a little bit about business. Redfin. So you were one of the folks that were in the room when this was conceived.
Yeah.
And you're the CEO. It's an impressive organization. You guys use technology, I think, in a really creative and bright way. You have continued to innovate over time. You guys have put thought leadership out there. I read your stuff. So first of all, congratulations on the success of your company.
Oh, thanks. We certainly try hard.
But I understand that this past year, you guys had sort of, a rethinking of your strategy, of your core values as an organization. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, a downturn always clarifies what the company values most, and so we did reconsider our values, and what was most important to us is just creating a competitive advantage for our customers, and not just for ourselves, because so often in real estate, it's a knife fight where you're trying to win customers from another broker or another lender. But we really had to challenge ourselves when money is tight and you have to prioritize what is most important. We have to make real estate better for the customer. And I think because we've been in such a funk as an industry, what was most important to us was to reaffirm the mission of the company, which is to make housing more accessible, more affordable, and more fair. We want to give consumers a better deal. Because if you're only here for the money and then the market goes to heck, well, suddenly you've lost your compass. But if you remember that you're here to make real estate better, to help people transition to a better life, and to usher in a new generation of homeowners, well, it gets you through the ups and downs a little bit. And so I think the company just had to go through that emotional process and remember why we love real estate, and why it feels like a sense of mission and not just a job. And that has been what's gotten us through a really rough year.
Yeah, I mean, that first of all, that's inspiring. Congratulations on that. It is a rough year.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that one of the constants in this business is it is a cyclical business, right? So it has ebbs and flows. There's certain trends that are constant, but there are upturns and downturns. And I blog myself. And I wrote about a few months ago about the fact that I've seen this movie a few times. I've been around for a little while. And I kind of know how it typically ends. But at the end of the day, when we have deep dips, we tend to have sharp rebounds and vice versa. So we were just at the tail end a couple of years ago of a 10-year bull market in the housing industry, one that we'd never really seen that long before. And of course, that was following the Great Recession, right? And some of us lived through that. We know what that was like. So I think the long-term players, the real professionals in this industry, are going to do fine, and they're going to be poised for the market when it starts to turn around. Do you agree, or?
I do. I wouldn't wish a downturn on anyone.
I get it.
And when you're in the middle of it,
It doesn't feel like a great
it
time.
feels awful. But then there develops this sense of pride. You know, we had an IPO in 2017, and we flew out the first 100 employees who helped us build the company, and those were the people who got us through the great financial crisis of 2008. And what we said to that group then was that you know something about yourselves that no one else at the company knows, which is that you are tough, that you can get through a hard time. And I never thought there'd be another group of employees that would develop that sense of identity and that sense of pride, because you spend the first 6 months of the downturn just saying, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, except you're not saying shoot. And then you look around and you say, we're still living, we're gonna take share, and we still believe in what we're doing. And you find out who was just jumping on the bandwagon to get into real estate to make a quick buck, and who really believes that this is our calling. And so I'll be glad when the market normalizes, but I think we'll all look back and be proud that we stood by this industry, by our customers, through the worst times.
Yeah, that's right. It builds character. But
Yeah.
I would also say that, one of the constants that we know is true is that there is one segment in the market, and I suspect that's one of the reasons why you're here today, that is guaranteed to do nothing but grow over the next 20 years, and that's the Hispanic marketplace.
The Latino homebuyer is the future. And I'm not saying that because I'm in a room full of Latinos. It's just a demographic fact. It's a demographic fact. 70% of the people buying a home in 2040, the new home buyers, are Latinos. So when people talk to me about why Redfin has been so committed to diversity, of course, it's a core value of the company. You shouldn't have to defend that in this day and age, but it's also a commercial priority. That if you want to reach all the customers who are going to be buying homes over the next 10 to 30 years, you need to make sure that you have Latino representation from top to bottom in the company, that you really understand your customer.
Absolutely.
And for the longest time, when the real estate industry imagined its customer, it imagined somebody who was like me, this rich white dude. And I just think that isn't where the future is. And it's just mystifying to me that the rest of America can't see that clearly, not just as a value for what this country stands for, but as this giant commercial opportunity.
That's right. And just to digress for a second, I wrote a blog, not to keep plugging that, but
You got to sell your book, Gary.
I guess I do. But I said one of the things that I think we've done wrong is I think we've misbranded the concept of diversity. I think it's been poorly branded, in my opinion. And I think it's been branded as sort of a compliance issue, sort of a regulatory issue, something that's been imposed on us, and not something that is, that speaks of growth and profit and, market share. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to correct. Your point is it's basic math. I'm not saying something that should be that tough to get your head around, but I do think some of the perceptions that have been created, the branding that's been created around diversity has sort of not been perfect, in my view.
Absolutely. Well, there's two elements to that. I always feel that if you see diversity as this act of altruism, first of all, that's condescending and racist. But second, altruism goes out the window in a downturn.
That's right.
And if the real reason you're doing it is because you see an opportunity where some people have undervalued talent, that means that you, if you appropriately value that talent, will have more driven, more brilliant, more hardworking people at your company than another company. And the same is true not just of your employees, but also of your customers. And what Redfin has struggled with is, on one hand, we're this incredible technology company. We've built the #1 brokerage site in the country. And so there is a progressive element of the business that is based in Seattle and Silicon Valley. But then we also employ real estate agents, 1,700 across the country, some of whom voted for Biden, some of whom voted for Trump, and they want to make sure that the company isn't being political. And I always respond to that by saying, well, do you basically believe in fairness? Because no one would play a game, like climbing the corporate ladder, for example, if they thought the game was fair. If you just said, roll the dice, let's keep playing, move your piece up the board, and someone's worried about fairness, they'd say, no, I'm not playing that game. And I think every human being from the age of 2 or 3 understands the concept of fairness. And so I have tried to reframe diversity in terms of fairness. If Latinos or African Americans are still underrepresented in management, isn't that some indication that the company still isn't being fair? And aren't we all committed to fairness?
Yeah. I love that. And I also know that you've put out a statement after a recent Supreme Court decision that got a lot of press about your core values in that regard that I was impressed with, by the way. So maybe you want to just
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about that.
Well, all we said is that diversity isn't a flavor of the week for us. I think there are so many companies during 2020, the Black Lives Matters movements, who felt moved to make some kind of statement, and it was rhetorical or performative, and it was something that they were really focused on for 6 months or 2 years, but then when the tides changed, they suddenly became very silent on the issue, and we just felt that it's important, rain or shine, night or day, to say, especially since we're in real estate, that we're committed to fairness. Like if you want to go sell cell phones or something like that, and you've got a grudge against women, or you've got a grudge against Latinos, knock yourself out. But when you're actually trying to decide whether somebody qualifies for a loan, whether someone is worth your time and helping them move to a better life, well, then you better take fairness really seriously as core to your business, as an individual agent, and as a brokerage. And so we felt like we didn't have a choice because of the business that we're in.
Yeah, appreciate it, by the way. It's a great stunt. So let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about technology. You mentioned that for a second. So your background is in technology. You co-founded a software firm prior to Redfin. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, but mostly I want to hear about your view on how technology is going to continue to impact our industry.
Sure. Well, I co-founded Plumtree Software. It went public in 2002. It made business software. And at the time, I was working with all my buddies. It felt like such an important mission. But then I woke up one day and realized we were selling software to anyone who would buy it. You know, a chip maker, a soft drink maker. We would have sold it to a cigarette maker, I guess. And I didn't necessarily feel good about that. And so I wanted to do something that was really mission-driven. I went through this terrible transition after the company went public, and I ended up leaving the business where my older brother couldn't stop drinking, and so I moved up to Seattle to try to help him out. And I just thought, I need to do something good with my life. Like we all have this moral capacity. Why don't we bring it to our everyday work? And real estate for me was the best possible forum to do that, where the stakes are really high about whether American cities continue to be segregated or integrated, about whether the next generation gets a shot at building the American dream. I felt like there was so much aspirational energy to it, but I didn't understand the real estate business, and I thought I could figure it out in 5 minutes, but it's actually taken me 18 years. So we could talk about how technology is going to make a difference in real estate, because I think we're at this pivotal moment, but I think what I've really learned is how much the human part of the equation matters. It's made me a better human being, getting away from my computer and meeting so many people, and understanding what really makes a difference to a customer is someone they can talk to. And that's something that I tried to automate out of the equation in my first 5 years at Redfin.
That's incredible. I love that. And it's something that's very important to us as an organization as well, right? I mean, we get into the grind and the routine of the business that we're in, and it's important that we take our head out of the sand sometimes and recognize that we are impacting lives in a very profound way. And it's a privilege. It's a privilege to be in this business, no doubt.
Preach. Preach.
I've been known to do that now and then.
No, it's great.
But your company made a strategic acquisition in the past year.
Yeah.
You acquired a mortgage banking firm, Bay Equity, who actually was a NAHREP partner for a number of years, so we know them well.
Yeah.
Some good people working for that firm, some very good friends of ours. So obviously that was a big decision on your part. I personally believe that type of acquisition tends to appeal to Latino homebuyers in particular. Yeah. I like the one-stop shop sort of setup. Yeah. I could get in trouble sometimes for saying that, but I know that Latinos base their purchasing decisions on trust. Yeah. And so when they trust the person who's helping them navigate through this very intimidating process, they're going to rely on that person for who to get their mortgage with, who to get their closing and settlement services, their insurance policies with, and so forth. So I'm interested in that. I think I understand why you did it, but I'd love to hear your take on it a little bit.
Sure. Well, there are just so many people, especially through the pandemic, we met who wanted to buy a home but were competing with cash buyers, felt so frustrated by the investor activity. If the basic mission of the company is to make housing more accessible, affordable, and fair, well then you have to address the affordability by becoming a lender. And the problem we had when we started looking at different lenders we could acquire, because many were for sale as we came into 2022 and 2023, everyone saw that the writing was on the wall. We just kissed a lot of frogs, and there were so many lenders where they thought what I wanted to hear when I came into the meeting was, I turn customers upside down and I shake every penny out of their pocket. I sell them the loan that has the highest margin. And Redfin is really here to put customers first. And then finally, we met Bay Equity that believes the same things we believe in, that really has a commitment to diversity, that really has a commitment to fair housing, that has been aggressive about understanding the needs of different communities. And it was just love at first sight. I said, I can't do another one of these meetings. I'm tired of meeting these snake oil salesmen. And then I walked out of Bay Equity and I knew we were going to do that deal.
Wow.
They are just great people. And I have learned as much from the CEO of Bay Equity, Brett McGovern, as he could have learned from me. He's just a great man. And so our hope is that we can give people more integrated advice. So many times I see, especially people with no generational history of buying a home, bounce back and forth between the real estate agent and the lender, trying to figure out what neighborhood should they be in and how much they can afford and what they qualify for. And if we just bring both of those people to the table to talk to somebody and say, we're going to guide you through this, it's way better service.
Yep.
And that's especially true for the first-time home buyer. It's especially true for the Latino home buyer, because you have to take into account just a lot of extra factors.
That's true. That's true. Do you have any thoughts on the inventory issue? I had a long conversation yesterday with Diana Oleg from CNBC, and you know she's a tough interviewer. I have my own take on that, but I'd love your sort of thoughts on it.
Well, you said earlier that we've seen this movie before, and I'm not sure I agree, because in 2008, the bottom fell out of the housing market. Nobody wanted to sell, but there were so many foreclosures and short sales that people had to sell. And so homes became much more affordable, and we had a fairly sharp correction. But now, there has been no break in home prices. Affordability is worse than ever. I've never seen a downturn where sales volume goes down and prices go up.
Interest rates go up and prices go up.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And obviously, the solution is inventory.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is that we always talk about how the Latino is the home buyer of the future, but also it's not just the demand side that I think is going to be addressed by the Latino part of America, but it's also the supply side. 30% of the labor market for building homes is Latino. And one of the main reasons we can't build enough homes right now is we don't have enough people to build homes because of our immigration policies. And so my hope, I'm not a politician, you don't have to.
Yeah, but you're doing pretty well.
But my hope is really in California, which has had its head up its butt for a while on building houses, where there was so much NIMBYism, so many zoning regulations. And now, for the first time, all these bills that failed year after year after year are coming up and getting passed, because California politicians know that if we don't build more houses in California, they're going to do it in Texas or in Florida.
Absolutely.
And that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of old boomers holding on to 3% mortgages forever, and inventory is going to be locked up until 2027.
Yeah. That's a really great point. You know, I'll tell you though, I know that you're a nationwide company, but one of the reasons that Latinos have increased their home ownership rate for 8 consecutive years, even in the face of some substantial headwinds, is because Latinos have been more willing to go and move to where there are jobs and affordable housing. So the biggest spikes of Latino home ownership are not happening in California, they're happening in the Midwest and in the South.
Yeah, well, that's just a testament. I know not all Latinos are immigrants, but when you have this new dynamic element in American society, that's what has always made America great. If you compare us to Europe, we are much less likely to die in the same town we were born in, because it has been a country of immigrants. When one place isn't working out, we pick up and go somewhere else. But for most of America, for the non-Latino population, Actually, that trend has been in decline, where more people are stuck in the same dang neighborhood, the same dang relationship, the same dang life. And when you have this dynamic part of America that says, if there is an opportunity here, I'm going somewhere else, that makes the whole economy work better.
That's right. That's right. No, that's a great point. Well, my take on the inventory issue is there's no silver bullet for it. We know that. Most of the issues that affect that are local and statewide and not federal. So there's only so many levers the federal government can actually pull. I wrote an op-ed that's going to be published by Housing Wire.
Was it also a blog post?
Everything starts. All of life's questions are answered in my blog, by the way. So if you don't get it, start reading it. Just kidding. But yeah, I did write about it, and I gave some ideas that I think. I mean, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do think we need a nationwide campaign about NIMBYism. It is a big issue. It's a tough one. Things are not going to change until we address that.
We need to call it is what it is, which is they are cartels. When bread prices come down, America is happy. When gas prices come down, America is happy. When home prices come down, somehow it's a calamity. And it's just old people holding on to their wealth so that a new generation of young people never get a shot. And if you look at the numbers, baby boomers when they were in their 20s and early 30s, they own like 30% of American wealth. Millennials own less than 20% of American wealth. We have pulled the ladder up right when those folks were coming of home buying age. Interest rates, low inventory. Society needs to come together and fix that, or we're going to have much bigger problems. The reason people have bought into this society is they always thought they'd get a shot at the American dream.
Yep.
And so my hope, not just because I'm in the industry, but because I'm a proud American,
Yep.
is that we can fix this problem for the next generation. And this industry, I think, can lead the way.
We can do it. We can
We can do
way.
it.
So, Glenn, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. You're awesome, man.